Hey girlies, just a quick reminder before we dive into today's episode. The information shared on this podcast is intended to be general sports nutrition advice and education related to period recovery for female athletes. This is not specific to any one individual, and it may or may not apply to your situation. If you are looking for personalized guidance, be sure to apply to our RBSN Period Recovery Nutrition Coaching Program. Our 4-month period recovery program is designed to help you sustainably get your period back and keep it. You can apply now to get started in our program, and we'll leave the link for the program below. If you're not quite ready for that one-on-one approach, that's exactly why we created the Period Recovery Guide. It's designed to support the girlies working on period recovery, specifically if you've lost it due to hypothalamic amenorrhea. The full Period Recovery Guide is finally out now, and we will leave all of the information for it in the podcast show notes. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. Hello and welcome back. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. It's Jenna here with Reilly. We are both dietitians and we talk every Thursday about sports nutrition for the girlies, specifically about how to get your period back if you've lost it due to hypothalamic amenorrhea. On today's episode, we're actually myth busting the period recovery process, which I'm super excited about. Reilly gets a ton of questions. We both get a ton of questions all the time about specific things that people hear online and whether or not you have to do them in order to get your period back. Before we do that though, we are going to do our high and low. So sharing just a little bit about our week, the good and the parts we wish had gone a little bit differently. And at the end, we're going to do our training update. We haven't done that in a while, and Reilly is preparing for an upcoming marathon. As always, Reilly, can you kick us off high and low? What's going on this week?
Usually I start off with my high, but I'm going to start off with my low because I feel like it's very relevant to the situation right now. And I guess like the last 2 weeks, I've been to the eye doctor about 4 times, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say about. I should actually just say 4. I've been 4 times in the last 2 weeks. I've just been struggling with my prescription and my eyes, and it's been this ongoing thing for a while. And just with like moves and different in pregnancy and all of that fun stuff, definitely neglected it, which I'm not proud of. But I am making it a priority this summer to get my eyes figured out. So I currently have my eyes dilated while we are recording this podcast. So if you are watching the video feed and my eyes are all over the place, like that is the situation that's going on right now. I am farsighted. I struggle with seeing up close. So it did take me about 20 minutes to try to put in my contacts after I got my eyes dilated. But we are here. We are here and we are recording this episode, which we're very excited about.
Definitely not a fun thing to do. Getting your eyes dilated is one of the worst experiences. It's just weirdly uncomfortable. It kind of like gives me the same sensation of like hitting your elbow, like your funny bone, where it's like it doesn't hurt, but it's just not comfortable.
I'm like crying. She's like, do you think it's working? I'm like, my tears are just like going down my face. I'm like, I think they're in. I think the drops are in. Thank you.
Plenty of them in there. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Did anything change with your prescription? Like, do you have updates, like positive news yet?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying, like, again, I'm trying my like 5th different prescription. I think we're getting closer. My eyes are just, I think, a lot worse than we all thought. I was compensating a lot because of the way that my eyes work. Not to make this an entire podcast about my vision problems, but I do think we're getting closer. I really do appreciate them. This actually could maybe even be my high, but I've been to different practitioners in the past and they haven't really like listened to me, but I do really appreciate like this group because they're listening and they're trying. They keep bringing me back in and trying to help me, which is just really nice and refreshing.
I'm really glad about that. It's so different when you have like a good group that you can trust and that like they're working to like get to the bottom of the problem with you.
It's great. My high, if you have listened to some past episodes, this used to be my low, but it really just depends on what day you ask me on. But my high is that I'm training for the New York City Marathon and I am really excited about it today, at least.
I love this. We're back to excitement around the marathon and marathon training. I'm so happy.
Yes, and I will share a little bit more in our training update like later on in this episode. But again, it's the ups and downs when you have a goal or when you're training for something.
Absolutely.
How's your week going?
My week's going good. Similarly to you, my low took place like very recently, as in like just before we got on this. I took my dog George outside and he stepped in an ant pile, got ants all over him, then stepped in the mud. So I had to like give him a little quick shower. Like it's the worst thing ever because George hates water and he's very, very resistant to like getting in the tub to like rinse him off. And usually it takes 2 people to do that, but I had to do that by myself. It's just, you know, one of those things that just happens, but it's just not fun when it happens. But I'm really thankful that like any of my client calls aren't being disrupted because it just happened on the right day. So I guess that's the good part of the takeaway of the low. My overall high though is just good culture cottage cheese because it is superior to all the other cottage cheeses out there. I've tried so many different brands and I always come back to that one as the best tasting one and I just had it for a snack. So that's That's my high.
The like curd texture situation is just different than your other brands. And I feel like only dietitians would appreciate this, but I understand. I see where you're coming from.
If you're not a fan of cottage cheese, I would encourage you to try that because I think it's different. Like, I think it's so much better. Whatever they're doing, keep it up. This is not sponsored, by the way. Not at all.
We wouldn't mind though. Charlie's going through a cottage cheese phase right now where she loves cottage cheese and I'm not mad about it, but it just is funny because she picks it up with her hand and just puts it into her mouth. She like has her spoon in one hand and then her cottage cheese hand. And I'm like, whatever.
Haven't quite connected that. We can.
Sometimes she's there, but like sometimes she like gets frustrated and is like, nah.
The hand is easy. Girl's got to fuel.
Girl has gotta fuel.
Today we are talking about myth-busting period recovery. Some of the questions that we frequently get are things that people hear online about getting your period back. We've done a lot of episodes kind of similar to this as to like whether or not you have to stop training in order to get your period back. If you have to eat 2,800 calories to get your period back. But what if you recently heard, Reilly, that is something that keeps kind of coming up in the world of period recovery as far as kind of that like all or nothing approach in order to get your period back?
I think just the all or nothing approach in general. I think it's been really eye-opening as we, have really shifted towards period recovery over the last couple of years. Just the like misinformation out there. I think when it comes to period recovery, especially for athletes, I think there's so many athletes being held back from starting their journey or progressing through their journey because they think there's only one way to do this.
I think you're definitely right about that. It can be a little bit intimidating to look at kind of the information or maybe some of the things that are Googleable out there. And it feels like that would be somewhat impossible for athletes to accomplish in order to get their period back, like stopping training completely.
Yes. The Reddit threads are wild. Like everybody needs to get off of Reddit. Like I'm on there too. Like I feel y'all, but like we have to be careful because the information that is being provided in like the masses is not individualized. If you're an athlete, especially if like you're an athlete, college level, elite level, professional level, like you can't just quit. It's basically your job. Also, even if it's not your job, most people don't want to stop training. It's part of their personality and part of their lifestyle. Our motto at RBSN is we have to help you understand how to fuel your body properly around your current lifestyle and around the training that you're doing. Because again, like if we just take you out of sport for 6 months, focus only on weight restoration, which some people need that. Say that really quick, right? Some athletes need that from a health and safety perspective, but the majority of people just need some general sports nutrition advice, some fueling, some nutrient timing to help them get their period back.
Nutrient timing, that is such a big one. I think that is such an important part of period recovery. We've had a lot of athletes that have come through the period recovery program who want to continue to train. And then when they submit their food log and they submit their training during their onboarding process, it's very apparent that the low energy availability that they're experiencing is because they don't have energy around or near their training. So we're training in a fasted state, or maybe we're eating breakfast hours before training and not having a fueling top off. What are some of the common things that you experience with athletes in regards to fueling and timing around training? Because a lot of times we hear 20 grams of protein within 20 minutes after your workout. And is that true? Or do we need to be eating 5 minutes before our workout? So pre and post, what are your kind of general recommendations as far as a good starting point for fueling your workout and then recovering from your workout from a fueling perspective?
This is such a great question because I think, again, like you said, there's so many people who are missing their period just because their nutrient timing is off, right? It's not even their energy intake throughout the day. It's just we are intaking the energy at the wrong times. And maybe the ratio of nutrients can be optimized at certain periods of time. You probably agree with this, but almost every single athlete is underfueling in carbohydrates, and especially around training. And that's where we usually like to start. So how can we have, 30 to 60 grams of easy to digest carbohydrates before training and then have similar amounts, if not more, of those carbohydrates paired with protein after training?
Such a good reminder to have enough carbohydrate to fuel your workout, because that's going to be your body's primary source of energy during that workout. And then having both the carbohydrate and the protein after your workout. Is there a specific amount of time people should be aiming for that recovery fuel after they finish training?
We say this all the time on this podcast, but I really do think it depends. If you are an athlete that is training at a high level, if you're training on a daily basis, if you're training multiple times a day, yes, that timing does matter. And I would would argue too, right? Like even our recreational athletes, I'm doing that recreational with air quotes because not to go on a tangent or get sidetracked, but all of y'all are out there saying that you're not athletes and you're spending 2 hours plus in the gym. Like I'm coming for all of you guys on the topic of myths, right? So many people are athletes. Just because you're not in a club sport or competing in a competition, it does not mean you're not an athlete. I digress. I really think that kind of like giving a guideline for post-workout fueling, saying like, can we get something within 30 minutes, is just another really wonderful opportunity to incorporate a new fueling period of time as well.
I love that. Starting with those goals of can we just get something in within 30 minutes? I really think about the it depends factor coming up here a lot because I have 2 athletes that train in the morning and then they both have work after, but their work schedules are very, very different. And the time that they have in between when they finish their training and when they start their work is very different. So the fueling patterns that we set up from a time perspective for both of them look very different based on the rest of their day, even though they both start training early in the morning. So while yes, it does matter to get that fuel in them post-workout, the way that we've set it up for them is really, really different because the rest of the day looks drastically different. And what we're able to do during work and around work is so different for both of them too.
Yes, I couldn't agree with that more. I even like think about myself, right? Like just using myself as an example. I usually wake up between like 5:15 and 5:30 to train and run. I have to get Char up at, 7:30. I usually don't have time to like make a big meal, but luckily because of the flexibility with the work that we do, like I can eat breakfast like after I drop Char off at, 8:15, but I need to have some sort of fuel before I get her, set up and ready. So I've been doing a lot of chocolate milk and things like that. And also like, I don't really have an appetite right now because of the heat. So I have a different fueling timeline than maybe somebody who starts work at 8 o'clock or who goes into the office or something like that.
Yep, exactly. Things like that are so unique to your situation and someone else's based on, do you have other people that are relying on you? Do you have a hard start time for work? Do you have a commute to work? Do you not have a commute to work? Does your work allow you to fuel while you're there? Because that's a big thing too. Because with you and I, we have a really easy way to stop and fuel because we work from home. But for a lot of other people, they might be on their feet. They might be interacting with guests, all that sort of stuff that we have to like take into account when building out that timeline and what we can fit in and when based on all those other things. So it really just depends.
Yes. But that's also why it's really important that you understand the why. And that's something that we really try to work on our athletes with, but like understanding like why you are eating and fueling at certain periods of time, because my schedule is going to change like as my daughter's schedule changes, as she grows, as her sleep schedules and her sleep and her life changes, my fueling habits will likely change because my training is going to change. My work will change. The goal is to understand the why so that you can make confident modifications and changes to your fueling plan based off of your changing life.
Which is another reason why at RBSN we're really passionate about keeping you moving during the period recovery process. So that way you understand the fuel that's needed to fuel different intensities of movement and how you might need to adjust it if your training and your goals around training change. Because definitely had people that have, come out of sport and are retired from sport, but then they decide later on that they want to run a race. And that's a different amount of training, but they still feel confident in knowing that their fueling needs to change too, because their training is also going to change. So that's why we're really passionate about making sure that like you understand the fueling and you understand fueling for training, because most of us, if not all of us, aren't just going to wake up one morning and decide that we're done being athletes. That's probably not going to happen. I say that so many times, I feel like, to athletes who ask me if they have to stop running, ask me if they have to stop training. And I'm like, well, if you were to get your period back and we stopped training, you would immediately start training again, because I highly doubt that tomorrow you're going to wake up and be like, I'm just done. I'm done being a runner. I'm done being an athlete. I'm done being a triathlete, whatever it is.
Even though sometimes I say that, I'm 30, I'm going to be 34 in November, and I still am like, okay, what can I compete at? Like, what can I train for? Like all that stuff. So yeah, I just agree with everything you said. I do want to say something though, because we have talked a little bit about like some myths related to exercise, movement, and then the all-in approach. I do want to be clear that there's some athletes and some individuals that do need to to stop training from a health and safety perspective. And it's really important that we acknowledge that and we say that, because there are some individuals that, again, do need that type of support and that type of guidance, I think, from a medical team.
100%. And I think it's important to say that because Reilly and I don't have a crystal ball. We can't say everybody that continues to train gets their period back and they get it back in 4 months, because that's how long we typically work with an athlete. It's going to be very different from person to person as far as what the modifications we need to make in order to get a period to come back look like for each individual. And that might mean that we haven't removed exercise completely, but like we've dialed it down, because we've talked so many times in other episodes, like we might be able to continue to train for sport, but maybe we're reducing like the amount of extra walking that we're doing. Maybe right now we're a runner and we're running such high mileage that we have to reduce it, increase fueling, and then increase both the running and the fueling together once the period does come back. Like there are situations that are so person to person dependent, but the biggest thing is that if there is a safety perspective that we need to be cautious of in order to get a period back, in order for someone to be in a healthy state, and recommendations would change. And it's usually a team approach when that's happening.
Yes. But that goes back to kind of the theme of the episode where like it depends and not one size fits all, right? Because this doesn't apply to everybody, as well as some of the, advice and modifications that we say that doesn't apply to everybody. And again, I think people are just being held back because they think there's only one way to do this. It's like 25 to 2,800 calories and you can't train and you have to do this for 6 weeks. I feel like that sometimes does more harm than good.
I have an athlete that I work with. She is a swimmer going through the period recovery process. Her movement looked quite a bit different than what she was used to. Not to say she's still not an athlete, because she is still training for sure, but it looked a lot different than competing collegiately as a swimmer. She's since gotten her period back, which is amazing. And now she has a goal to run a half marathon. So together we're going to make sure that we increase her fueling appropriately so that way she can continue to train the way that she currently is and add additional movement on top of that.
Yes. I think a really easy way to kind of gauge, like if your movement is too much, if you're doing this by yourself, is to look at how long you've been in your period recovery journey. If you've been in this for months, I would say 2 or more, to be completely honest, then we need to look at what you're doing, because there's an imbalance between the fuel that's coming in and the energy that's going out. And again, we don't want to keep you from training. And therefore, with that, then you have to make fuel modifications. You can't just keep doing what you're doing and be like, I cross my fingers, like I hope it comes back. Like you have to make changes in order to see change and to see a different outcome.
Right. If we've made progress, but that progress is halted or it's stagnant, we still need to be more aggressive in the changes that we make, either with fueling modifications or modifications in other ways in order to continue that progress to get your period back, which is sometimes hard. That can be really, really challenging, because once you've made changes, you feel like that's hopefully enough, but sometimes it's not. I think with so many athletes, they truly underestimate the amount of fuel that they actually need. We've talked about so many times, just from a performance aspect, how much the body requires, not to mention the fact that we have to fuel you as a person, we have to fuel you as an athlete, and then on top of that, we have to correct deficiencies. And when we are in a period of low energy availability, we have a deficiency.
Yes, exactly.
I think one of the myths, and we've talked about this, is like high or lows and what drives us bananas and things like that, is that there isn't a magic food or fuel option to bring your period back. Of course, adding in a new food, if you see something online that you're like, that sounds good and I'd love to try it and incorporate it in my fueling, there isn't a single magic food that you can incorporate in your fueling that is going to bring your period back.
I always joke about this with athletes because I'm like, if there was, I would tell you. Like, I would literally be screaming it from the rooftop. Like, that would be the name of this podcast. This podcast would be called Papaya, if papaya helps you get your period back, right?
It's a great thing to add and incorporate in your fueling. There's many benefits to papaya, but just like all things, it's not a magic thing that's going to bring it back.
I think this goes back to, a similar conversation that we often have about the birth control pill. We're not solving the root cause, right? And like, we can't just take a single supplement or eat a single food. That's not going to reverse low energy availability. And I know that it sounds really nice and it sounds great just to be able to take one thing and it solves your problem, but it's because your body is in a state of starvation. And the only way to get it out of that is to give it the fuel that it needs.
Which is going to come with challenges, but it's the only way.
You had to bring up the papaya. I mean, I brought up the papaya, but I know where you were going.
You could read my mind on that one. It was also pretty obvious, but still, there isn't a magic thing. There isn't a magic pill. And like Reilly said, if there was, she and I would be sharing that, because the goal that we both have is helping you get your period back. And if there was something that was going to do it like that, we would tell you.
We would have a papaya sponsorship and we would tell you about it. I promise.
But instead, the name of this podcast is Eat More Carbs.
Exactly.
If there are myths that you have heard, or you have questions about things that you have read online in regard to period recovery, it's something that you should or you shouldn't do in order to get your period back, leave them in the comments of this podcast or reach out to Reilly and I. We are going to do our training update. Reilly is training for the New York City Marathon, perhaps one of the most iconic marathons that you can run, which is incredible. So Reilly, how is training going this week? We're excited again, which is good. So
we are excited. We are excited because I've been like changing and working on my mindset with it. I was like, I've never run a marathon before. Kind of ironic that we talked about the athlete piece of us, because, when like you're an athlete or you've been an athlete in the past, you still like want to perform well, right? You always want to perform. I'm not going to win the New York City Marathon. Like I'm not going to do that, but I do have like performance goals that I'm trying to meet. I think I'm like super conflicted on things because I'm like, I want to perform well, but then I want to enjoy it. It's an iconic marathon, the first marathon I've ever done. Like no matter what happens, I will PR the marathon, right? Because I've never done it before. I'm like back and forth on things, but this week I'm feeling good. I've decided that like I'm gonna be a tourist about it, basically. Like there's different ways to get to the start line and things like that. And I was like, I'm in an earlier wave, so I'm supposed to take a bus, but I was like, I'm taking the ferry. Like I'm going past the Statue of Liberty. Like I'm doing I'm touristing this. Like I'm gonna have fun about it as much as possible. So I'm feeling pretty good this week. I'm only like in the upper 20s with miles per week right now. And I do have my next half at the end of August. That's what we're doing right now.
I'm super excited for your next half. Hopefully have a less stressful pre-race experience than the last one. If you are curious about what Reilly's previous half marathon was like, we did do a full episode on that where she shared about kind of the details of that. But I love this mindset approach. I think something that not only with like running, but with like period recovery as well, is there's a lot of it that's a mental side of it, like a mental component of like just having that positivity and being in the right headspace. Because if we're constantly like down on ourselves about it, it can feel even harder. And I really, truly believe that impacts things.
There's so many like mental components to, everything. And I feel like when you have a goal and you are somebody that's dedicated and you're passionate about reaching that goal, the mindset can be the most challenging part of that.
Absolutely.
What about you? What's going on? How's our hamstring?
It's not what I want it to be completely transparent, but it's also like happening at the best time of year that it possibly could, because running here is so hard, because I would have to get up at like 4 a.m. to run before I walk my dog at 5 a.m. because 5 a.m. is the coolest part of the day. And that's just sacrificing a lot of my recovery and my sleep. And I'm not really willing to do that because, like we've talked about before, there is a big part of like staying healthy that incorporates like good sleep and recovery and all that. So I really haven't been running that much, and I'm okay with that. And so I'm just doing other things. It's hard for sure, don't get me wrong, because I love to run, and as a runner I feel like that's when I feel like most myself, and that's what I love to do. But it's also important that I treat my body the way that it needs to right now, so that way I can run in the fall when it starts to get more comfortable outside. So I'm only running like a couple times a week, very short mileage, and only when it feels like appropriate. That's my update.
I love that. What else are you doing right now? Have you like tried anything fun?
Okay, big shout out to one of my clients, because she gave me the recommendation to do the Stairmaster, and that has been like a lifesaver from like a cardiovascular standpoint for me. So that's what I've been doing in the gym quite a bit, and it's been working well. I don't know if I've shared that before or not.
No, you haven't, but yay, that's cool.
The things that we get from clients who know our struggles too.
We're like one big family over here.
I feel like we work with the best people. I've said this a million times, but every single one of my clients is so kind. Appreciate everybody that I work with.
Yeah, me too. Thank you guys. I feel like we say this like every day though, at least to each other, but thanks guys.
Like I mentioned earlier, if you do have period recovery questions, you've heard things or read things online that maybe you're curious as to whether or not that is or isn't something that you need to do in order to get your period back, leave them in the comments of this podcast, or you can reach out to us online. You can find Reilly on Instagram at easy.sports.nutrition, and you can find me at jenna.fisher.nutrition. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Eat More Carbs podcast. Please make sure you rate, subscribe, and review. And as always, remember to eat more carbs.